The estate sat at the end of a long, twisting driveway, lined with dying birch trees, tall, silent and brittle, just like the man who lived inside. Avery Delancey had built his empire with grit, ruthless intellect, and charm that once made headlines. Now, his name still echoed in business magazines and gala donation plaques, but his home was cold, hollow, just like him. The accident had been brutal. A ski slope, a snapped vertebra, and one surgeon's slip, the kind that ends careers and ruins lives. Since then, Avery had been confined to a wheelchair, but if you asked the nurses, therapists, or doctors who'd cycled through his grand front doors, they'd tell you it wasn't just the legs. His heart had stopped moving too. Avery didn't try anymore, didn't want to, didn't speak unless necessary, didn't feel like feeling. Then came her. "Morning, Mr. Delancey." The voice was soft but firm, not sugary like the others who came before. A black woman in navy blue scrubs stepped into the room, holding a thermos and a canvas tote. Avery didn't even look up. She waited. He continued flipping through his newspaper, not reading, just turning pages to fill the silence. "I brought Colombian dark roast, no cream, 1 sugar." Still nothing. She moved quietly to the counter, poured it into a ceramic mug, and set it beside him. No hesitation, no apology. Avery's eyes flicked toward the coffee, then to her face for the first time. Young, brown skin, kind eyes but not naive. Beautiful in that way that didn't ask for permission to be. "Who are you?" he asked, the words dry and unused. "Naomi," she replied. "Your new caregiver." "No one told me I was getting a new one." "They usually don't," she said, unpacking supplies. "You fire most by day 3. His gaze sharpened slightly. She continued. "But I'd like to make it to Friday, rent's due." A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, small and unbothered. He stared at her. She didn't flinch. "Do you believe one person can be the reason someone chooses to keep going? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below." Naomi's first day moved slowly. She didn't force conversation. She moved around the mansion with quiet respect, learning the space. The walls were filled with muted artwork and forgotten family photos, a boy and a woman in several frames, but none recent. Avery noticed her looking. "My wife and son," he said flatly. "Gone. I'm sorry." "I'm not," he muttered, then turned his chair and rolled away. But Naomi wasn't shaken. She'd cared for veterans, stroke patients, and angry fathers before. Pain never scared her. She just followed the routine. She made him stretch his fingers even when he glared. She adjusted his position in the chair despite his growl of "don't touch me." She noted his stubbornness in her journal, but didn't take it personally. At lunch, she offered to cook. He refused. At dinner, she made something anyway. Grilled salmon, steamed rice, and buttered spinach. She left the plate beside him and walked away. He ate half of it when she wasn't looking. That night, she sat on the guest bed and pulled out a photo from her wallet. A little boy in a Spider-Man hoodie, beaming with gap-toothed pride. "Almost there, Micah," she whispered. "Mama's working hard." Avery stared at the ceiling of his bedroom. Even in silence, he could hear her voice in the back of his mind. The gentle assertiveness. The way she'd walked into his house like she wasn't afraid of the ghosts. He didn't know yet that he'd dreamed for the first time in months. Of walking, of coffee, of her. The next morning began like the last. Silence, the scent of brewed coffee, and Naomi humming faintly to herself as she moved through the kitchen. But something small had shifted. When she placed the coffee beside Avery, he spoke first. "You always bring the same one?" Naomi looked at him, surprised but unreadable. "Until you ask for something else." "Humph." Still, he sipped, and she smiled. Mid-morning brought physical therapy, the part he hated most. Naomi laid out the resistance bands and adjusted the footrest of his chair. "I'm not doing that." "You said that yesterday," she said, crouching down. "And yet here you are. I didn't ask to be here." She paused, meeting his eyes. "No one asks for pain. But you're here. Might as well fight back." He narrowed his gaze. "Is that your pep talk?" She didn't blink. "That's your life. A long silence sat between them. Tension but not anger. Something else, something aching. Avery finally exhaled and lifted his left arm, slowly pulling against the band. For the first time in months, he tried. The days began to blend. Naomi stayed late, not because she had to, but because she did. She'd found a rhythm in the mansion's quiet sadness, and Avery, without realizing, began adjusting to her presence. He started eating more, reading again, letting her help without growling. But there were still days, bad days. It was late Thursday afternoon when Avery's walls came back up, sharp and fast. Naomi found him in his study, staring at a picture of a little boy. His hands trembled. "You okay?" she asked gently. He barked back. "Why are you always here? Don't you have your own life?" Naomi blinked. The words stung more than she expected. She set down the tea she'd brought and straightened. "I do," she said softly, "but I'm here because someone has to care about you, even if you don't." He scoffed, eyes glinting with something raw. "Don't pretend this is noble. You're here for the paycheck." Naomi stiffened. The air shifted. Then, with quiet fire, she said, "No, Mr. Delancey. I'm here because I know what it feels like when nobody shows up." And she walked away, leaving her words in the room like broken glass. That night, he didn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, hearing her voice again and again. "I'm here because I know what it feels like when nobody shows up." The next morning, he didn't wait for her. He rolled himself to the kitchen, fumbled with the coffee maker, spilled water all over the counter, swore loudly. Naomi walked in to see him frustrated, wet, and cursing at a Keurig. She paused at the doorway. "What are you doing?" she asked carefully. He didn't look at her. "Trying." And that single word, trying, knocked the air out of her chest. She walked toward him and silently helped clean the mess. No words, just shared presence. He muttered, "Guess I owe you a new coffee pot." She chuckled, "Guess so." They looked at each other, something unspoken softening the air. Later that day, Naomi led him outside to the edge of the garden. He hadn't been out there in years. The sun touched his face, and for the first time, he closed his eyes and let it. "I don't remember what it feels like," he whispered. "What?" she asked. "To want anything." Naomi knelt beside his chair and gently rested a hand on his arm. "Then maybe we start small. Want coffee? Want air? Want to live?" Avery turned to her. His eyes weren't cold anymore, just tired. "I don't know how. You don't have to. That's what I'm here for. Have you ever had someone show up for you when you didn't believe you deserved it? Share your story in the comments. Your words might inspire someone who's struggling." That evening, Avery asked her to stay for dinner. She cooked pasta, and they ate at the dining table. The first time in years he'd used it. "Do you ever get tired?" he asked between bites. "All the time," she smiled. "So why do you keep showing up?" Naomi's voice turned quieter. "Because if I give up on you, you'll never learn to stop giving up on yourself." He said nothing, but something in him shifted, barely visible. For the first time in 3 years, Avery Delancey slept with his bedroom door open. Naomi arrived early that Monday, not because she had to, but because something in her chest felt pulled toward the mansion now. Not by obligation, but something more dangerous. Care. She found Avery in the sunroom, already dressed, a navy sweater, crisp slacks, hair combed. "You're early," he said without looking. "So are you." He smirked faintly. "Didn't want to be late for my stretching session." She arched an eyebrow. "Who are you? And what did you do with Mr. Don't Touch Me?" He chuckled. Actually chuckled. And she laughed with him, head tilting back, releasing something between them that had been coiled tight. A moment passed. Too quiet. Too full. They both felt it. Over the next week, the rhythm of the house changed. It felt less like a place someone was waiting to die, and more like somewhere people were trying to live. Avery started reading again, aloud sometimes, when Naomi was in the room. She brought him music, jazz mostly. And they'd sit in the sunroom, him in the chair, her on the floor by the window, talking about everything and nothing. He asked questions about her life, her past. She gave short answers, but true ones. "I'm from New Orleans," she told him. "Moved here for better pay. My son's 6. Avery blinked. "You have a son?" She nodded. "Micah. He's with my sister while I get settled." He looked at her differently after that, as if she'd just unfolded a new page of herself. One afternoon she helped him transfer from the wheelchair to the couch. His hand brushed hers a moment longer than it needed to. He looked up. "I'm not sure I remember how to be touched," he said, voice barely above a whisper. She didn't move, just held his hand. "Then we'll go slow," she replied. And she didn't let go. That night, Avery couldn't sleep. His chest ached in a way it hadn't since the night of the accident, the one that took his mobility and something else too. He remembered screaming into the snow, not from the injury, but from what came after, the news that his wife and son, who had driven up the mountain to surprise him, had crashed in the storm, gone in an instant. That night, he lost more than his legs. He lost why he walked. Back in the present, Naomi noticed him quiet the next morning. "You okay?" she asked, kneeling beside his chair. "I'm tired," he said softly. "Not body tired, just soul tired." She reached up and brushed a hand over his. "Then rest. I'll be right here." He nodded, and something cracked open in his eyes, like glass catching light. Later that week a storm rolled in, thick thunder, sheets of rain. The power flickered. Naomi lit candles in the dining room. "You scared?" he asked. "Of thunder?" "No." "What about love?" he asked suddenly, then blinked as if surprised at himself. Naomi froze. "Why are you asking me that?" she asked gently. Avery looked down at his hands. "Because I think I'm starting to." She swallowed, then stepped closer, and instead of answering, she took his hand and kissed it. The next day, Naomi stood on the porch during sunrise. She called her sister. "I think I want to stay longer," she whispered. Her sister replied, "Is it about the job?" Naomi's silence was answer enough. "It's okay to fall, Nay," her sister said, "even if it's not part of the plan." Naomi wiped her eyes. "Yeah, I think I already have." Just as everything felt like it was moving forward, it fell apart. Naomi returned from a grocery run to find Avery yelling at a nurse over a cancelled appointment. "I don't need help," he shouted. "I don't need anyone." Naomi walked in, calm but fiery. "What's going on?" He turned on her. "You were gone and they treated me like an invalid." "You are recovering," she said, trying to hold ground. "No, I'm broken, and you keep pretending like I'm not." Her eyes flinched, but she didn't back down. "You are broken," she said, "but so am I. That's not an excuse to push away the one person who gives a damn." He froze. The room pulsed with silence. Then Avery whispered, "I don't want to lose you." "You will," Naomi said softly, "if you keep hiding behind pain. When people are hurting, they often push others away. Have you ever done that, or been on the receiving end? Drop a comment if this moment hit close to home." That night, Avery rolled himself into her guest room. She was packing. "You're leaving?" She didn't answer. He moved closer. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm scared. That's all." "I know," she whispered. "So am I." He took her hand. "Please don't go." "I need to know you're fighting," she said. "Not just for me, for you." He looked at her, truly looked. "I want to try to walk again." Naomi's breath hitched. "Then I'll stay," she said. "But only if you mean it." He nodded. A tear slipped down his cheek, and she kissed it away. The next morning was quiet. Not heavy, not like before, but still. Naomi stood behind Avery as he looked out the wide glass windows of the sunroom. The sky was gold and pale blue, the kind that made everything feel possible. "I dreamt I was running," he said softly. Naomi's voice followed like a whisper. "What did it feel like?" Terrifying, he admitted. And free. She stepped beside him, her hand brushing his. He didn't pull away. I spoke with the physical therapist, she said. They're willing to try something new if you're ready. Avery's fingers tightened on the arms of his wheelchair. His breath trembled. I want to, he said, but I'm afraid of failing. In front of you. Naomi leaned in and whispered, then fail. I'm still here. The therapy room had been cleared out. Padded mats, support rails, a sling-assisted lift, everything needed to help him try. Avery stared at the equipment like it was a mountain. Naomi stood beside him, holding a belt in her hand, not to restrain but to support. Ready? She asked. He didn't answer. She crouched and met his eyes. You can hate me tomorrow. Just stand with me today. Avery nodded, barely. They secured the belt, lifted him slowly, muscles shaking. His feet touched the ground. He grimaced, trembled, but stood. For the first time in 3 years, Avery Delancey stood upright, clutching the rail, sweat pouring down his face, pain ripping through his legs. But he stood. Naomi's hands never left his back. Look at you, she whispered. I can't breathe, he groaned. She laughed through her tears. That's okay. I'll breathe for you. He took one step, then another. The therapist's voice faded in the background. There was only her. Step, wobble, step, collapse. He fell forward, not hard, not injured, but down. Naomi dropped to her knees beside him, cradling his head. I failed, he muttered. No, she said, wiping his face. You moved. You came back. He looked at her, really looked. Why do you love me? She paused. Because you let me, she said, and because loving you taught me I'm more than what I survived. They sat on the floor of that therapy room for a long time, not saying much, just sharing breath, warmth, gravity. I used to think healing was about fixing everything, Avery said. And now? Now I think it's about choosing to live even when you're still broken. Naomi smiled and kissed him. That night, Avery wheeled himself into the hallway mirror. He stared at the man he'd become, hair grayer, shoulders heavier, but his eyes were alive. He rolled into Naomi's room. She was journaling. He handed her a folded piece of paper. What's this? She asked. Proof. She opened it. A photo of him, taken that afternoon, mid-step, arms shaking, legs bent, her hand on his back. You walked, she whispered. I'm walking, he corrected, and he knelt forward and kissed her forehead. I love you. Naomi swallowed the knot in her throat. I love you too. The days that followed weren't perfect, but they were real. Avery kept walking. Not far, not fast, but every step felt like a hymn. Naomi stayed, not just in the house, but in his life. Micah arrived 2 weeks later, a tiny boy with huge eyes clinging to his Spider-Man backpack like it was a shield. Avery was waiting in the living room, in the wheelchair still but upright, clean-shaven, sweater tucked in, eyes open. Naomi knelt beside her son. This is Mr. Avery. Micah peeked up. Hi. Avery leaned down. Hi, Micah. You like grilled cheese? Micah nodded. Good. So do I. Micah smiled. Just a little. It was enough. That night, the three of them ate at the dining room table. Micah beside Naomi, Naomi beside Avery. Laughter, crumbs, crayon drawings on placemats. The mansion no longer echoed, it exhaled. Over time, the staff began referring to the East Wing as their side of the house. Naomi cooked, Micah played. Avery found excuses to wander beyond his old routine. He even asked for therapy again, not just physical, but emotional. I want to be whole, he told Naomi one night. For you, for him, for me. Naomi cupped his face. You already are, but I'll walk with you anyway. Avery walked Naomi down the garden path. No cane, no brace, just her hand in his. Micah ran ahead, laughter floating into the warm air. I never thought I'd have a family again, Avery whispered. Naomi leaned her head against his shoulder. You didn't get the one you planned, but you got the one you needed. He kissed the top of her head. They hosted their first Thanksgiving together. Dozens of guests, friends, therapists, former nurses, staff who never thought they'd see Avery smile. Naomi cooked for hours. Avery peeled potatoes, badly. Micah decorated the hallway with glittered leaves. At the head of the table, Avery raised a glass of apple cider. I once believed I was finished, he said. Now I know. I was just waiting to be found. Naomi reached under the table and held his hand. Later that night, when everyone had gone and the candles were low, Naomi and Avery stood in the kitchen. I never asked you something, he said. She turned. What? What's your dream? Naomi paused. For a long time it was just to survive. And now? To be loved, out loud, all the way. Avery stepped closer. Then I hope I get to spend the rest of my life proving I can do that. Naomi smiled through her tears. You already are. Micah was asleep. The fire was low. Naomi lay curled up on the couch, Avery's arm around her. A photo of her, him, and Micah sat on the table. Avery looked down at her and whispered, You gave me a reason. Naomi, barely awake, whispered back, No, love. You just needed someone to remind you you still had one. And together they drifted off, not into sleep, but into peace. Can love truly help someone walk again, even after life tries to break them? What do you think gives a person their reason to keep going? Let's talk in the comments. Your voice matters here.